Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our engine opening series. In fact, it's a mini-series in itself, because over the next 6, 7, 8 videos we are going to be having a look at the opening choices of Komodo Dragon. Now, Komodo Dragon, it's one of the top 3 engines, probably still in third place, just behind Leela, obviously at some distance from the god, Stockfish. And well, this video is an overview. I'll give an overview of what Komodo's choices are, and I'll also explain a little bit why on earth am I doing this. And then in the next videos after that, we're going to zoom into specific areas of Komodo Dragon's opening choices, 1e4, 1d4, and who knows, maybe even a bit of 1b3. So let's get into it. So why on earth am I doing this? Well, I think a little bit of context about how engines have improved in the past 4 or 5 years will be useful just to understand why. I mean, until late 2017, strong human players could still claim ascendancy over the best engines in a few areas of the game, and it was especially true of opening play. Engines like Stockfish Classical and Komodo Classical were disappointing value in openings where tactics were not the primary feature. And what did they lack? Well, in essence, they lacked the urgency that strong human players have in the opening phase. The sense that development should be completed as efficiently as possible, the sense that opportunities to complicate arise while both sides are mobilizing. Setting engines of that period on an opening position for 6 hours was to produce a mass of difficult to understand variations, many of which contain strange and unexplainable tempo losses. Why are you playing bishop d7 and then bishop e6 after, when you could just go bishop e6 in one move? And of course, some gems of insight were buried within those lines, but it was pretty intensive and sometimes a little bit distressing to extract them all. It took a very, very long time. But this all changed for me in early 2018 when I got to witness AlphaZero's games against Stockfish 8. And there were many impressive facets to AlphaZero's play, but especially its opening play was on a different level to anything else in the engine world, because just like human players, AlphaZero was looking to make things happen from the earliest moment, which was reflected in its discovery and its espousal of some super sharp lines, for example against Stockfish's favourite Queen's Indian. Let me give you a little bit of an example there. So d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6, g3, normally a reasonably quiet line, but AlphaZero played all of the sharpest lines. So for example, against bishop a6, it played this very sharp pawn sacrifice, which was also all of the rage in human chess at the time. And against the solid bishop b7, it played Polygievsky's pawn sacrifice as well, with knight d4, just exploiting the pin on the d5 pawn, sacrificing a pawn for plenty of play, and it won some fantastic games with that. Now, when Leela came out, the spiritual successor to AlphaZero, then its opening play was also at that level. And well, with the introduction of NNUE technology, that's neural net technology, though it's different technology to that of AlphaZero and Leela Zero. It came first into Stockfish and then into lots of other engines like Komodo Dragon. Well, we saw the same quantum leap in strength in all the other engines, So nowadays, strong players look to their engines for ideas in every type of opening. And it struck me that it would be, really intriguing to look at the opening choices of the latest engines and to compare that to conventional wisdom about the opening. And, when I'm talking about conventional wisdom, I'm not talking about the current thinking of elite players about the opening, which is, on a completely different level, and I think would surprise all of us enormously, if we heard all of that. But I'm more talking about the the orthodox thinking about openings that was prevalent until about 10 or 15 years ago, and which I think is still how the the average non-professional chess player thinks about openings. And I think you're going to see an awful lot of very striking things in this. So in this first series of videos, we're going to be examining the opening choices of Komodo Dragon, as we said. And this is an overview, and then in subsequent videos we zoom into specific areas. Now, how did I do this? I mean, what I did, I let Komodo Dragon run for vast amounts of time on my most powerful hardware, typically getting to a depth of 54 and searching a couple of 100,000 million nodes on specific positions. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you can always do more, of course, but this is a pretty substantial amount of thinking. A couple of words of caution just when you're following these results. You know, we're often talking about differences of 0.02, 0.03 between variations, you know, over billions of analyzed moves. So, you know, there are never huge differences between primary and secondary lines, but still gives a good indication when you look at what Komodo's top line is. Also, I'm giving the full line that Komodo Dragon produced, but bear in mind that normally the last few moves of the line are not optimal. The accuracy really tails off towards the end. So normally when I'm looking at it for myself, I just cut off the line a few moves early and that, you know, assume that the evaluation applies to that. And then in terms of scaling, well, Dragon's evaluations are on a pretty similar scale to Stockfish's. So if you're used to those, Dragon's evaluations mean pretty much the same. That's quite different to AlphaZero, which operates on quite a different scale. And then finally, you know, bear in mind that, well, the opening position of chess, it's just a draw between engines of Komodo Dragon's level. So, you know, don't be surprised if none of the lines here lead to a decisive advantage. But it is very interesting to have an idea of, you know, what does this 3600 ELO level engine think about the opening? Where does it think are the most promising chances? And finally, you know, this video is going to be supplemented by some PGN files, which I will share, and also by a summary article or two on my blog, matthewsadler.me.uk. Okay, let's get started. So the most interesting question maybe is the very basic one. What does Komodo Dragon think is best play from the starting position? Well, you might be able to guess, and it's not particularly good news. That's right, Komodo Dragon wants to play e4, and it thinks that the Berlin is best play for black against one e4. I mean, why is the Berlin so popular with neural net engines? I mean, I think it's simply that it's a product of this urgency that I was talking about before. You know, the neural nets really try and redress the balance as quickly as possible, if possible with direct action. And, you know, the Berlin really is the quickest opportunity for this. It captures one of white's pawns, flattens out the position by forcing exchanges, and in many lines a symmetrical pawn structure as well. So I think it's really, you know, really inherent to what they try to do with chess. And well, the main line of that Komodo Dragon has is this line that's been played a lot in grandmaster chess. The bishop goes back to f1, we go d4, rook e1, rook e8, c3, takes, and now knight e8, and after bishop f4 we get d5. Well, you get the idea. I'm not going to go further in the line here. It's pretty equal. White has a small edge because yeah, I mean, black's knight is a little bit awkward. Black's bishop on f6 is a little bit odd, but it's a symmetrical position with, you know, a pair of rooks and a pair of minor pieces already exchanged, so not much is going to happen really if black plays it properly. So that is Komodo Dragon's main line. That's what it sees as best play from the starting position. But we don't have to let Komodo Dragon just stay with that. What if we were to force Komodo Dragon to consider 1d4? Well, to be honest, we are in for a bit of a surprise here. Because after knight f6, Komodo Dragon doesn't want to play c4. It plays knight f3. And then, well, if black plays d5, which is Komodo's first line, well, what does Komodo want to do? Amazingly enough, it wants to play bishop f4, London system. Even in fact against 2e6, again, Komodo Dragon doesn't want to play c2 to c4, the main lines. It also wants to play bishop f4 in the London system. So essentially what Komodo Dragon thinks is that these mainline d4 c4 systems are less promising than the London system. Quite a striking conclusion, I have to say. So what's the main line? What does Komodo Dragon think the main line is? That's c5, e3, e6, knight d2, queen b6, rook b1, bishop d6, which I think, to be honest, was played by Ding against Magnus Carlsen in one of these online rapid events. And yeah, so what's the main line? Takes, queen takes c5, bishop d3, b6 castles, bishop b7, b4, queen c7, takes, and c4. And this has already been played in the game between Jeffrey Zhong and Vidit in 2022. White is a little bit better, but it's not very much. That top level game was drawn, and Komodo Dragon ends up with an evaluation of 0.19, which is, well, you know, just a slight advantage, but nothing amazing. But what really is amazing is the idea that the London system might be a more promising way for White to play than the 2c4 main lines. Really quite striking. And this actually carries on a little bit, because after knight f3, well, Black could also play g6 and try and get into a King's Indian or a Grunfeld. And here Komodo Dragon wants to play c4, bishop g7, and now not knight c3, which you'd expect, because basically it thinks that the Grunfeld with d5 is basically equal. But no, it wants to play this move e3. And these moves have become extremely popular at the elite level. And the idea is that after castles you go bishop e2. You don't put a knight on c3, so you know, if Black plays d5, we can always play ideas like e4. Loss of a tempo with e3 to e4, but no knight takes c3, weakening the white queen side and allowing counterattack along the h8a1 diagonal. So d6 is what Komodo thought was the best line. Knight c3, bishop f5, and this has been played a lot in top level games. And here Komodo likes an unusual move, d5, looking for knight d4, and then when the bishop moves to play e4 finally. And well, knight e4, takes, castles, bishop f3, takes a5, rook b1, a4, bishop d2 is Komodo's line, with a slight advantage for White. This has also been played in a correspondence game, but nothing hugely amazing, but also nothing yeah, particularly fantastic for Black either. So but this is a really interesting thing. Again, you know, the mainline c4 systems, Komodo Dragon wants to avoid those, and just wants to play the move 4e3. Let's move on now. How about 1c4? Well, just like AlphaZero, Komodo Dragon wants to meet c4 with 1e5. And its main line is to play g3, knight f6, bishop g2, and now it considers the move c6 to be best, which is also my the way that I play against the English opening. So very happy that Komodo Dragon confirms that. And well, I mean, to be honest, these lines I don't think these lines are anything at all for White. And it just follows, Komodo Dragon just follows known theory and gives a 0.10 evaluation at the end. One interesting thing actually was if you make Komodo Dragon play the move after c4, e5, knight c3, and after knight f6 it thinks for a very, very long time, and it goes for something which I always found a little bit incomprehensible about AlphaZero, because it wants to play this move and then e4. And I've always considered this to be a really dull line with very few chances for White, but Komodo Dragon wants to do it as well. So the idea is bishop b4, you go d3, d6, a3, bishop c5, b4, bishop b6, bishop e3. But Black plays bishop g4, eventually takes the knight on f3 and brings something into d4. And well, I mean, it's maybe a slight edge for White, but it always feels to me like there's not that many chances for White to do anything interesting there. Funnily enough, the only correspondence game that I've got, or Komodo's analysis follows the correspondence game for quite a while, and that had actually ended in a loss for White, amazingly enough. But yeah, this is not one I'd really recommend. I don't consider this to be very promising at all, but that's what Komodo Dragon likes, and that's also what AlphaZero liked in these positions. Now, how about one knight f3? Well, I mean, Komodo Dragon wants to play d5, and of course, after d4, we're just back into standard 1d4 lines. Intriguingly enough, against 1g3, against the Reti, then Komodo Dragon makes a choice that, well, when you see it and you think about what Komodo Dragon wants to do against the King's Indian, then you'll understand why. Komodo Dragon wants to play c5, knight f6, and then e6, which is also the system that I play, funnily enough, as Black. And yeah, the idea is simply that after c4, you play d4, e3, knight c6, and we're into this sort of reverse Benoni position. Of quite unclear, these positions. I've had some good results as black, but yeah, it's again mirroring that approach for white. Again, against knight f3, d5, c4. Again, Komodo Dragon wants to play d4, which is again the line that I play. And when I've played this as white, this has always been the most irritating thing to face. So e3, c5, b4, knight f6, a Benka reversed, but Komodo Dragon isn't at all worried about this. In actual fact, it even considers black to be slightly better. But that's maybe a little bit over-optimistic. But yeah, I mean, again, this line c4, d4, the most aggressive line. That's the choice of Komodo Dragon. So let's just summarize that again then. So against e4, e5, that's what Komodo Dragon wants to play with a Berlin. Against d4, it likes to play knight f6. And then the amazing thing is, as white, it's not looking for c4 lines, it's looking for the London system. And against 2g6, then it's looking for these, well, quieter systems, not trying to grab the whole centre with knight c3, not actually wanting to face the Grunfeld, but delaying that and taking the teeth out of the Grunfeld approach, and then looking to play e3 to e4 later. So a much more restrained approach there. And then, yeah, 1 c4, e5, and 1 knight f3, d5, ready to play c5 and d4 if ever white plays c4 itself. So there we are. That's just an overview of what Komodo Dragon likes. Would not be a bad repertoire, to be honest, to base your own main repertoire around. Very interesting and very decent lines as well. So in the next videos we are going to zoom into a lot more detail. So for example, against 1e4, what does Komodo Dragon want to do against the Caracan and the French? Well, stay tuned to find out.